Let's try this again. We had a little bit of a technical glitch there. Anyway, welcome. Hi, my name is Robert Hansen. Welcome to my Facebook Live. We do this intermittently throughout the fall-winter season. We were doing them on Sunday nights over the summer months, but we have shifted back to the Friday nights. When they are done live, it'll be at 7:30 p.m. And we invite anyone that would like to come and join us, whether you're coming from the past, whether you're new, just come in, say hello, and sit back and relax, and we'll cover different types of topics on spirituality, psychic work, and so on. Tonight's topic is a very, very popular one, a very well-known one. It's an expression that is used in many circles, not just in some psychic circle somewhere or some psychic community someplace, and that is using the term shelter from the storm. Great rock stars, recording artists have even used it in lyrics and music. It's such a popular theme. So let's get to it. When we use the word shelter from the storm, it implies that we are seeking comfort, we are seeking a cover, we are seeking some kind of defense against what is commonly referred to as the storm or the movement of life itself. In that expression alone, we are referring to the idea that life as it unfolds is a storm. It suggests that life is a storm, that it's volatile, it is explosive, it is massive, it causes downpours, it causes tornadoes, it causes hurricanes, it causes earthquakes, and it does. Not only in the physical phenomena, where nature actually moves against nature, if you like that expression. I mean, these folks, these poor families and these poor folks in Puerto Rico, in the Caribbean islands, in southern Texas, southern Florida, we all know what's been going on here. The folks out in the West with the horrific wildfires that have damaged and taken lives. We all have seen and witnessed over the last several months the tremendous effects of a storm. Storms don't always have to include rain and lightning. You know, we have thunderstorms, we have snowstorms, ice storms, dust storms in the great parts of this world where you have desert communities, perhaps even in our own Southwest as an example. So there are many places, many cultures that refer to the storms. And of course, when a storm does come, as with human animals, as with any animal, we seek shelter. To stand in the pouring rain or to stand in the pathway of an oncoming hurricane is really rather foolish, and usually the result is not a positive one. There's usually death, destruction, injury, harm, abandonment, some level of negative result has happened from standing within the storm. So we get it. I mean, I think you all understand, we get it, that you want to seek certain shelter from the storm. But that is on the external process. That is the natural process, right, where we have nature affecting nature, of which we are a part of, and we seek shelter within our house, within an apartment complex, whether it be an animal burrowing underneath the soil of the backyard, a fox going into its den, a bear seeking a tree, whatever it might be. It is just part of the instinctive defense. And that's an excellent thing to recognize. To have a defense mechanism, to have a protective instinct, to have a instinct that is driven by, and we'll be careful with this word, we will, to have a fearful response is a very, very good thing to have. It has been implanted in us, it has been born into us genetically since we first started scrambling around on planet Earth as the caveman and that whole thing, coming out of caves with rocks and sticks. And even in the earliest years, man knew to somehow get out of the way of dangerous storms, right? So it's been going on for 1,000,000 years, probably. It's been going on forever. But on the internal process, that's a whole different ballgame. One person, for example, sees an injury to the body, and they go, okay, I broke my arm, I can't drive my car for a few weeks, or I can't go to work the way I normally do, or I can't write the letters I typically write. It's frustrating, it's a little bit annoying, but I'll cope with it, I'll work around it, I'll do something else. And they will strategize, come up with an alternative to the inconvenience of this little baby storm, right? There's like this little dark cloud over the arm, so to speak. However, there are other people where that little same movement, that same break, can cultivate a major storm. For example, if you're a surgeon, if you're a professional musician, if you're someone that uses your hands as a mechanic and your life living is depending upon it, if there is a high necessity for you to have a functioning right arm where you can't sit around for 8 weeks and just do this, and you need to have access to your dexterity, you need to use your arm internally, despite the fact that, let's say, matching injuries, a man A and man B have the same injury, but man A has a casual approach because it doesn't really impact them so much. Man B says, I don't know about you, but this is really giving me a rough time. They have different responses to fundamentally what appears to be the same storm, but it's not. It is not. What moves through people is not just the simple act itself. It is their reactions to that action. It is their necessity under those actions, what is required of them under those actions. All of that factors in to how somebody responds to the storm, right? So when we're dealing with this storm mentality, this storm feeling, for many people that I meet, and I meet an enormous amount of people, I've shared this here on Facebook before, I probably meet well over 1,000 people a month at minimum. Varying stories, varying events. Some are beautiful, some are extremely painful, the deaths of certain people, the way they died, how they died, what it did to their families, all of these kind of things can be, in many cases, excruciating, and it's almost as though there's a lightning storm that doesn't seem to lift over the tops of their heads. They seem to walk around, no matter where they go, with this kind of storm in the brain. So then, how does one basically get shelter from this storm? So let's take a look at it closely. And this will touch on what I'm sure some of you have heard from other spiritual teachers, perhaps, and other people. There is this big, big push. There is this big, big push about learning to become present in what is commonly referred to as, that is a car horn going off outside in the street. I will talk through it. I'm sorry for this inconvenience. I think it's my neighbor's car. Someone probably left the keys on or something. But so what you've often heard, I'm sure, is this expression, be here now. It's only in the present tense. You have to stay in the present moment. People often treat that as just some kind of a Chinese fortune cookie comment. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Stay present. I got it. I got it. I got it. And they dismiss, they minimize the enormous, and I mean enormous, healing grace of understanding what it is like to truly be present in this moment. This is one of the cornerstones of receiving shelter from a storm. Please listen. From this moment that I'm talking to you guys right now, everything that has occurred prior, which we refer to as our past, right? Our past, has several movements to it. The first and the most significant is that the past is unfixable. The past is unchangeable. Unchangeable and unfixable. In Buddhism, one of the teachings of the Buddha says, referring to the word karma, he said, if the past did not unfold the way it did for you, why did it? If you weren't supposed to have had those experiences in the past, why did you? And if it was supposed to have been any different for you, it would have been. Therefore, in the law of karma, we refer to the past as a teaching agent. It becomes a tool. It allows us to look back at what we experienced, not from a method of judgment, not from a method of opinion, not from a point of view it should have been different. Those are all movements of the head. That's the mind saying it. So, for example, your very good friend, you're in the car with the person, They drop you off. You go inside to your house. They go down the street. And unfortunately, they get killed in a car crash. And you may have said internally, if only I was in that car, it wouldn't have happened that way. If only I had told them not to drive, the weather was too dark, too rainy, and they insisted on leaving. I said, don't do it, and I let them go, but had I really put my foot down, perhaps they would still be living, right? But you didn't do that, and that is not a defect. It is not a fault. It is the level of your consciousness at that time. Whether your consciousness was frightened, whether your consciousness didn't want to intrude, whether your consciousness was rejected, whatever it was, it unfolded exactly the way, not just you, not just your friend in the car, the movement of life was unfolding. You see, the human being has this crazy idea, it's kind of a crazy idea actually, that we are in control. I mean, people really kind of think this way, that somehow we should have magical powers almost to control the moment that we're living in, and then not only that, be able to go into the past and reboot that whole story and control that somehow. And then thirdly, of course, which we'll get into in a little while, is they're going to try to control the outcome in the future. And the purpose of these control methods, these ideas of control, is somehow an artificial sense of empowering yourself, that by telling others what to do, trying to control destinies in other people, that somehow, quote, you're helping them. Now, on some level, that may be true. You know, that may be true. You go, let's say, to a fitness coach, and they say you have to do 20 more push-ups, you have to do 20 more sit-ups if you want to get the results that you're seeking. In tomorrow's workout, in the future, I think that will be a smart move. And you can take that generalized advice and either apply it and do it and feel the benefits, or you can say, I'm not listening to that guy, I'll do it my own way, and probably not get the same benefits you thought you were going to be getting. This is also very true internally. It is. Many people have heard this, not just from me, I've told you this earlier, that from other guys and other women that talk in the spiritual path. They talk about staying present in the now and not letting the past own their heads. Well, let's get this straight, guys. If right now, and I've used this here on Facebook over the last 6 or 7 months, if right now, I went and you lost your memory completely, other than your name and the obvious stuff, you know, where you live and all the general practical bits of information to successfully negotiate the physical world, right? Your name, your address, where do you go to work, what's the name of your doctor, who's your attorney, you know, practical stuff. Where's your summer camp, what's the vacation place you go to, things like that. But when you are attached emotionally, intellectually to what has already ended, finished, done, with the idea driven by the emotions, driven by the anger, driven by the fear, driven by the grief, driven by the loss, driven by the sorrow. We are constantly trying to go back and somehow modify, reboot, reinstall a different version of what was. So as I said a moment ago, if I snapped my fingers and by some magical wand, all of that memory went away, there would be no past. There would be none. All you would be left with is this present moment with the necessary memory to go moment to moment to moment, or live what we commonly refer to as the now, right? Most people you tell that to, they think you're either a little cuckoo or it might be good for you, but I can't do that. I'm always in the past, I'm always thinking, and frankly, we all are. Any thoughts that we have, any emotions that are driven on our soul, right, anything comes out of the past. When you are fully present in this moment, when you're fully present, it's not a memory at work. It is happening in the exact moment. What your memory does and what your experiences, which create the memories, do. Please listen. Your experiences, whatever you have experienced and in whatever way you have experienced it, you may have experienced it through a sense of strength, you may have experienced it through a sense of love, you may have experienced it with great commitment, or conversely, you may have experienced whatever those experiences were with great fear, with great anxiety, with great doubt, with great trepidation. Whatever they were, They set up internally within you a judgmental experiential process. In other words, my early years were horrible. And you could justify it. You could list 25 things that would happen, and the way your father didn't love you, and your mother hit you, and the way people walked away from you or abandoned you or something. I think you get the idea. And depending upon that processing from the past, from your past, you're going to pull those emotions, pull those reflective thoughts, pull that memory into this moment because you lean on the past internally. Therefore, whatever you are experiencing now is a reflection of those emotions. So this present moment is not clear, it is not pristine, it is not receiving you, nor are you receiving it in its real beauty and its real awe. You are receiving it in a fractured, distorted, like a very, very cloudy mirror. You're looking at this present moment. And the reason why it doesn't come across with that real beauty, that serenity, that peace, is because the past is dragging itself to you while you're in this present moment. And the present moment just seems to break apart every moment. What happens? The mind, because it is not satisfied with the present moment, it's not happy with the present moment, right? It's not happy with it unless there's something occurring in the present moment, you know, like you just won the lottery or something, or some dramatic thing, or you just got a pay raise, or you got the new car in the driveway, and temporarily you get this little bounce of joy, or this little, you know, explosion of real happiness, this real thrill feeling comes in. But as we all know, those things kind of shift away, and they move away very, very rapidly, very, very easily. You get the new car, someone dings the door, and tomorrow morning you're pacing up and down your driveway saying, what the hell happened? Who hit my car? I got to get it fixed. I'm not going to be settled until the door was repaired, and for the next week, you're twisting in the winch because you got a dent in a piece of metal. Don't call it a piece of metal. It's my car. I identify with it. It's part of my personality. Okay. I mean, that's fine. Many people do it. Many people act that way. But it's causing a great suffering. It's causing a personality shift, right? So you have to get to the control point that says, until the door is fixed, I'm not going to be at ease. And a week later, someone hits your other door. Here we go again. And that's just a micro example of how people interpret the moment, because the moment is being interpreted based upon what they want to hear, what they expect to hear, what they demand to hear. The moment is supposed to constantly keep them in some level of peace, keep them in some level of no frustration, no upsetment, no sorrow, no sadness. Like a fairy tale. Like a fairy tale. And people constantly are fighting with this internally. They're constantly fighting with it. And what they often do also is seek other people on the outside either to drag them in to make this come true, or they blame them for not making it come true. They take no responsibility. This is one of the reasons why the storm clouds loom. This is why they loom. And we are constantly ducking and seeking shelter from these storm clouds that are rising from the past, and they drift into our minds in what we call the present moment, and they hover like this. But the truth of it is, I mean, if you look at it closely, the truth of it is, it has nothing to do with this present moment. It doesn't. It is just the past reinstilling itself into you again and again and again and again, holding you hostage, holding you prisoner, making you nervous, giving you upset stomachs, making you anxious, pacing up and down, whatever it does, and you can't seem to get rid of it. You become attached, almost as though you were hypnotized to the past. And if you're really honest and you look at people in your lives that you'll know, when you talk about the past with most people, at least with my universe, and I see a lot of people, on some rare occasions, they may talk about some happy times. Yeah, my dad and I did this, my mother and I did that, my husband was great, he took me here, my son did this, my daughter did that, I remember, I got a picture of that day in Hawaii, right? But by and large, when people describe their past, it is full of fear, it is anxiety, things could have been different, things should have been better. This happened, that happened, this happened. And I'd say to these guys, well, when did that happen? Oh, that was 12 years ago. 12 years ago? Are you kidding me? And to them, it's happening right now. That storm is alive and well. Why? Because you are, and me, and everybody I love too, creates those storms. So here's the funny part about this lesson. To seek shelter from the storm is basically saying what? How do I get shelter from myself? That is the spiritual question. Shelter from the storm is a cool word. You can do a rock and roll song about it or something. But the truth of it is, one is really asking, how do I shelter myself from me? From me. How do I shelter myself from my insecurity? How do I shelter myself from my fear? How do I shelter myself from the way I react to other people? How do I shelter myself from the way I respond to my in-laws? Those kind of questions. And if you really look, you're going to see, depending upon how you're set up internally, what your experiences have been, and how much judgment you cast. Judgment meaning your opinions of them, your opinions of what they are doing, your opinions of how the world is reacting. And those opinions, my friends, are yours. Yours. And you are creating that storm internally. In some cases, it could be just like a sprinkle, just a little drizzle, and it's not a big deal, and it doesn't mean that much to you, and you kind of move on. It could be a sunny moment where everything just seems to be rolling great. It's all good for today. Well, today's been really good. That kind of a comment. People will say, the morning's been beautiful, but it's a long day. I'm sure something's going to happen. Those kind of dark cloud, pessimistic mentality people. And with respect, please, guys, I am not referring to people who are dealing with chemical depression, severe depression, extreme loss that recently occurred a couple of months, even a year or two ago. You have to kind of give those guys a little bit of normal biological healing slack. I'm really referring to the overall appearance, the artwork of your life prior. You see? Before I continue, I just want to say hi to everybody. I'm Robert E.Hansen. Thank you very much for coming. This is our Friday night meet. Tonight's topic is shelter from the storm. If you're new, I'd love to hear from where you're coming from. Just say, hi, Rob. I'm from Manorville or wherever you come from. If you're a repeat person, you just want to just say hi one more time. That's always great. If you're a regular, you can kind of relax and just kick back. Okay? But I just hope you're enjoying this dialogue. So to continue, we'll see that the shelter of the storms, again, is not just about some magical storm coming over your head, like a storm has been sent to you, that somehow, with respect to language, the God of your understanding has sent the storm to defy you. Of course not. Of course not. What it is pointing to the movement of your own consciousness, right? Now, the term says shelter from it, right? So let's take a look at that. Externally, I talked about this at the beginning of the discussion. Externally, yeah, you need shelter from the rain. You need shelter from the snowstorms. You need shelter from a tornado. You got to do it, or you're going to get badly hurt, or you're going to get physically damaged, all jammed up. People you love are going to be hurt. It just makes sense, of course. But in those cases, however, fortunately, unless you're living maybe in Tornado Alley or the Hurricane Belt, they're not that common. They occur throughout the season, maybe once every year or two. Something may come by. The warning sirens go off, that kind of a thing, and you opt to stay willing to take those risks because it's such a beautiful place to live. You say, you know what, this is my home. I love living here. I love the people. I love the community. The guys are great. I love everybody. I'm a real Southern person. I love it. I'm not going to walk away because some storms come by every couple of years. If you lose 2 or 3 people in those storms, you may consider moving. Sure. It's such an egregious hurt that you just can't bear it anymore. But by and large, those people kind of weather it. You can see them on CNN and other places. They come together as a community and they, quote, get through the storm. But even if it takes a month, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, eventually, on the external level, externally, buildings will come back, roads will get repaired, electricity will go back on, cars will keep moving, and it will kind of, quote, return. But internally, the people that are going through those storms carry it. And every time there's a dark cloud or a forecast comes up, they activate the memory of what was. Now, there's nothing wrong, and I said this before, about a practical memory. So if we know that there was a forest fire a town over and it destroyed half the community, and we're being told it's moving our way at this year, of course you do what you do to insulate yourself from any damage. But on the internal storm, which you yourself are creating, based upon your judgments, your experiences from the past, you can generate a fresh storm every 2 minutes. You can live in a storm basically day after day after day after day after day. And I meet these people all the time. They never live in the present moment. They are forever talking about what was. Always. Always. They keep talking about what was. And they never seem to shed it or get rid of it. Now here's the key here. This is really a very important piece. They will say to me, Robert, I just can't stop thinking about it. I just can't do it. I just can't. I mean, I heard what you said. I understand what you said. I tried to close my eyes and do it. I can't get rid of it. No one is asking you, nobody is asking you to get rid of it. When you try to get rid of it, here's what happens. One part of the mind says, I'm being told to get rid of it, right? I'm being told to get rid of it. The other part of the mind says basically, oh, no, you're not. I'm alive and well. This is what happened, and I'm not going to let you forget it. You're not going to forget it. I'm telling you, watch. I'll activate you, and I'll show you what it's like again to lose your mother 15 years ago, and I'll make you feel sad. Watch how easily I can do this. So moving on from it, old memory, crash. They crash. And quite frankly, old memory wins. It does. Old memory wins. And you know why it wins? Because it's more deeply rooted. It has been practiced your entire life. You've been brought up to live that way. You've been brought up to think that way. And it's not your fault. It is not your fault. It is just the human mind at work. That's all. So don't blame yourself. Don't beat yourself up if you're not free of it today. The key to it, though, the key to it is to see it. And that's why we use the expression when people come to my office and other places and we do these dialogues. I tell them, you know, and this I'm stealing from one of the great spiritual teachers maybe of all time is Krishnamurti. He says, whatever you resist will persist or will continue. So the old thoughts collide with the idea of getting rid of these old thoughts, and it becomes a battle zone. And one is constantly fighting the other, and it becomes a friction point, and no peace arises from any of that. None. So what are we going to do about this? Right? We're creating our own storm. We're asking ourselves to find shelter from the very storm that we're creating. Right? So here I am trying to find out who's robbing my store, and I'm actually the guy robbing my own store. And I'm looking for a thief out there when the thief is me. Right? That's kind of what's happening here. So what you do is this. It's really kind of simple. Can you allow yourself to fully experience all of that? All of it. The thoughts of it, the memory of it, the experience of it. Just let it come, without trying to control it and without reacting to it. This is, my friends, what is taught in every spiritual practice I have been around. And I still practice it myself on a daily basis. Right before I did this talk with you guys tonight, I was upstairs in my private room and I spent a half hour in meditation, which I do every single evening, especially before I work with some great people that I meet out on the streets and on the roads, right? Come here to meet you guys. I sit, I pray, I meditate to prepare myself to, to do this work. So the idea is not to be free from it. You're not going to be free from your past. It is part of you. You can't free yourself from it. You can't. What you can do is be free with it. And that is a totally, totally, totally revolutionized approach to handling the suffering of your self-created storm. You become what they call in many spiritual circles, you become the silent witness. You simply allow it to be present within you. Why? Because it is within you. You are experiencing it. You are struggling with it at this particular moment, let's say. And to deny, repress, suppress, push away, medicate, drink, do other things to avoid this, not only does it amp it up, but it empowers it to come back the next day twice as strong. I have not met one person, and I mean I have not met one person in my 30 years in being in recovery from alcohol. As most of you know, I'm in AA, but I don't care who knows. But if I can help somebody, I'd be happy to do it. But my point is, I've been around that program for 30 years. I have not met, and I've been to 1,000 meetings. I don't know how many meetings, thousands of meetings. I don't know how many. I've never met anyone that is fully recovered from alcoholism, which is a one day at a time thing, that is in full denial about it. How do you recover when you're completely in denial you're doing it? You can't. I don't know anyone. That's why once you become honest with yourself, we talk about self-honesty. Actually, on the other side of the AA coin, it says, to thy own self be true, be honest. And your honesty says, I am heartbroken, I am sick to my stomach, I am angry, I am frustrated, I am disappointed, I feel betrayed, I am wounded, I am hurt. All of it's true, according to your brain. That's what's true, that's what's happened to you, right? Now, on a short leash, that is your living truth, yes. On a bigger scope, of course it's not. It's just the movement of your own ego, and it's the movement of your own mind, and it's the movement of your own thoughts that are coming up with these expressions, coming up with these reactions. But I want to keep this grounded with you guys in the practical sense, right? So you're waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning, or 8 o'clock in the morning, whenever you guys get up. I get up at 6, but let's say you get up 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you wake up agitated. You had a bad night. Your dreams are bad. You got to have a, and you know you're going to have a crap day with your boss coming up. He's going to call you on the carpet because you missed work by 15 minutes last week. You're like, oh my God, I'm up for review, and I know I'm going to deal with this. And you are projecting and projecting and projecting and projecting, and you brush your hair, you put on your work outfit, and you go into work, and you try to make believe everything is cool, right? You put on the act, you put on the face, and you pretend that things are different internally, which is supposed to be understood by your face. And then you sit down with your boss, and inside you're sweating, and all of that kind of stuff is going on. And the whole time, the other person or people around you in the workplace, whatever it is, they can sense that vibration. They may not know what it is. They may not be able to describe it in spiritual lingo, but they'll say, what's up with him today? Or what's up with her? I mean, something's not right. You know, you can just feel it. You meet people like this all the time yourselves. It is because their anticipation, their expectation, their past is slamming them with a storm. You don't see little clouds and raindrops, of course, in the middle of the air, but what you feel is the result of that storm. It's like an unseen wind. You can almost feel and say, ooh, leave them alone today. You know, that kind of a feeling. Leave them alone today. That kind of a feeling. You see, so when we are dealing with shelter from our storms, the true shelter is not a matter of hiding, which is what is implied externally, is to get out of it like this, right? You hide from it, you look through the windows, you pull up the blinds, and you watch the rain go by. Well, nice and dry, but look at that storm going by. You're in a sense of safety, right? What people seek is a sense of safety, security, when they have a storm coming. And on external level, again, once again with my language, externalized, it's practical. Internally, though, it's a completely different flip. People internally, of course, want to feel secure. They want to feel safe. It's natural. You want to feel secure and safe, of course, right? What makes someone want to feel secure and safe if you really look at it, is that they have the sense of fear. They do. They are frightened of what may repeat itself from the past or what the future may hold. Now, this is a very interesting helper. I hope you really focus with me on this. Please listen. This is really beautiful. Not from me, from all the great teachers. It is impossible. It's not difficult. It's impossible to experience any anxiety, any fear, any worry, any doubt when you are truly present in this moment. Just please stay with me in this moment. It's impossible. Sitting still and just doing that is not being in this moment. Can you allow this moment to be as it is? What people think is that there is a series of moments which we call 24-hour cycle, 1 month cycle, 1 week cycle, 1 year cycle, decades. And we perceive it to be, we think of it as like a string of dots. And they flare up like this. And the reality of it, the reality of it is, it just ain't true. We have created as human thought the concept, the idea, the structure of the mind that has made, quote, time into separate entities. And by that, we describe our lives. What happened when I was 7, what happened when I was 6, that kind of a thing, right? On one level, I understand it. Historical books are full of it. That's what causes and writes human history. At this point in time, this event took place. And on chronological clock time, it is true, absolutely true. I am not referring to that. I am talking about psychological time, the time of the present moment. There never is, there never will be, there can never be any other moment in your experience, in your existence, than this moment. When you get to next Friday, and you say it's Friday morning, 9 o'clock, it'll be in the moment. It is, when you are staying fully attentive to this moment. Now, I don't mean standing there, gripping your desk like this every second, trying to pay attention to the moment. That's a control. That's a control, right? Just take a look at any bird in the hour. Look at a cat sitting on the back of a couch or something. They just sit in the moment. If something comes to bother the cat, like a dog, the cat will move. It takes appropriate action in that moment, right? The cat moves away. It goes to another part of the house. The dog sniffs around. There's no more cat. It settles right down, right? Now, if the cat was mauled or severely hurt, it may retain an instinctive defense that when she senses or he senses the dog around, they may scurry away again. That will go on for a while, and that's also very normal in all animals. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a biological reflex that is not a matter of real, true memory. Please don't get that confused, okay? Don't get that confused. We have been given as human beings enormous gifts to keep us safe. Enormous. The problem is most people ignore those gifts. And they drink and drive, and they over-medicate with drugs, and they do crazy things, and they take crazy risks, and they push the envelope and smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and they do whatever the hell they're doing, expecting no negative consequences. And then when they show up, they say, I can't believe this happened. Are you kidding me? Of course it happened. You put yourself in enough harm's way, it's going to eventually hurt you. Let's be real. And then you complain and bitch about it or complain about it after it happens. You're making your own storms. I'm not suggesting you wrap yourself in bubble wrap. But when we go out of our way to place ourselves in difficult harm's way, that's different. For example, I'll give you a fast analogy. You know, one of my sons plays hockey. It's a rough sport. They bang around. They crash against the boards. Pucks are whipping back and forth. But he's in the right uniform. He's in the right protective gear. He's got a good coach. He's got a good teammates. He knows basically the risks that are involved. He physically goes to the gym. He prepares for his game, and he plays the best that he can, right? I'm not comparing that kind of a situation where you could certainly get your arm broken in a heartbeat. I'm not talking about that. It's compared to somebody who's going to a house party somewhere and someone says, here, take a few of these pills, and they just throw them down with no throwing caution to the wind, and the hell with everything, and then next thing you know, they're working up there in the emergency room with their stomach being pumped, and their parents are pacing up and down in the hallway, and they said, I can't believe this happened. What do you mean you can't believe it happened? You got to be kidding me. You're lucky you're alive, or you're not paralyzed that had a stroke, right? So when we're dealing with these storms, it's not just, of course, our storm. It's people that we love too, but they also have their equipment, like you do internally, to process these storms. So can you see, by allowing this moment to be as it is, including the anxiety, including the fear, including the joy, including it all, we respond to it by just being what we call the silent witness. Some people like to call it the silent observer. And you simply experience it without reacting to it. You notice it as a movement of thoughts which your body has been conditioned to believe as real, and they are not. Thoughts are a result of past interpretation, which we have decided through common practice to make them true. Now, I'm not talking factually, meaning if your favorite baseball team won the World Series 4 years ago and you've got the sticker on the wall to prove it, and you've got the tickets that you were at the game, and you can brag that you were at the last time the New York Yankees won the World Series or something like this, it's all great. You can talk about it. I was there. It was amazing. I saw this. I saw Derek Jeter do that. It was unbelievable. It was great. Fine. In this moment, that's the conversation. In this moment, it's a little reflective, right? It makes you feel popped for a little bit, and then it goes away, right? But in that moment, you were discussing those things. For other people, they'll say, I want that moment to repeat itself. I want that to happen again. I want to feel like that again. I haven't felt like that since. I want to get it back. And until I get it back, I'm not going to be settled. Two different kinds of folks, right? Two different kinds of folks. And some of those folks really suffer and really struggle and really, really hang on by their fingernails, hoping to get the outcome to free them. You know, when like the Chicago Cubs, and I'm not a big baseball guy, I mean, I'm not, but I'm currently watching the World Series like everybody else, and I'm not a big Chicago Cubs fan. You know, I'm a New York Islander hockey fan, and my team had 4 Stanley Cups in a row, and it was great. We haven't done well since. It's been pretty much a rough ride. But we're used to Chicago Cub fans, right? These poor guys went almost 100 years, maybe 100 years, without having a World Series championship. They finally succeeded, and you could almost hear the whole city of Chicago exhale. Oh, not only it was glorious and celebrating for that great city of Chicago, great, great people, but it was like a monkey was off their back, and they finally were able to step out of the storm of failure and enter the daylight of success. And it took a physical experience for that to happen, because their mind was so conditioned and so hooked and so driven for that to happen, they would find no rest. I even saw guys put up signs and said, now I can die and go to heaven happy. That's how much it meant to some of these guys, right? They are completely hooked into this. And whether it be the Chicago Cubs baseball team or somewhere else, no matter what it might be, we cultivate our own storms. Look, I mean, we all know people, I'm sure you guys do, and I have, people, of course. You know, a guy meets a young lady, he really falls head over heels, but she doesn't have the same reaction. Or conversely, a young lady falls in love with the guy, or 2 women that fall in love, whatever the variations, partners, I don't care how you get there. And one just simply says, yeah, I know, I like you, you're very nice, but I'm not in love with you. I'm not looking to make my life commitment to you. And you could see them almost become dark. You know, I feel like killing myself. I can't live anymore. Are you kidding me? I can't live without you. I don't know what to do. They become angry or aggressive at them. They withdraw. They become highly depressed. They begin drinking all the time. They become angry at the birds in the trees. They don't know what to do. They just can't accept the other person's position. They are demanding this other person feel the way they feel. They were demanding it. And if you don't do it, I'm going to be very angry and very wounded and very hurt. Don't you look what you're doing to me? Don't you see the harm you're causing me? How could you create this storm? It's not them. It is you. It's you. You're making that storm because what you wanted is not unfolding the way you thought it should show up. You see? So in learning to, quote, shelter from the storm, on an internal process, we don't look to have shelter. We really don't. We really don't. That's why, and I'm sure a lot of you listening in, you might hear someone that gives a talk about a pep talk, about a spiritual pep talk, or you might hear someone in a religious community, a rabbi or a priest or a yoga teacher or some spiritual teacher, drop a few things in your head, and it really makes sense, and you feel amped up, and you feel pretty good, and you feel kind of free. Or perhaps you're going to a therapist or a counselor, and they're really working with you and trying to have you have a different insight into what you're approaching, right? What they all are kind of trying to do is either give you some kind of a sales pitch. I'm not saying that to be negative. Don't misunderstand me. They're trying to convince the mind of something different, to look at it differently, but the mind says, I can't. I can't do that. I can't. I'm not ready for that shift. They say, but you're suffering. Look at you. You're in the middle of a hurricane. I know I am. I can't get out. The question is why? Why? Right? And the big part of that is, and I know this sounds crazy, but it's not. The people that are stuck in those situations, oddly enough, they feel security in them because they know what they're dealing with. It gives them a sense of identity. It gives them an anchor into the past. It gives them a sense of solidarity with others that are like them. It forms an alliance, and it keeps them hooked in to what was. And they seek, in their cases, they seek shelter from their storm by constantly being victimized, by constantly being coached, by constantly being counseled, by constantly being giving this, by constantly saying I'm broken, by constantly saying life is not that good, by constantly doing this. And they're always insulating, sheltering themselves from these uncomfortable feelings. And they never, ever, ever, unless there's a radical change, ever get free of their suffering. And with respect to language, they go to their grave suffering. And they hope by physical death, somehow, because somebody's told them this, that they're going to magically wake up on the other side with wings and everything will be over, everything will be free. And that just ain't true either. That's just not true. The consciousness you die with is the consciousness that continues. Make no mistake about it. And every spiritual teacher, from the man on the cross to Moses, to the Buddha, to the Quran, to the different books, they all talk about getting your life right. In other words, stop creating storms. Right? There was a very famous teacher, the man on the wood, the man on the cross. He would say, "As you sow, so shall you reap." He was talking about shelter from the storm. If you want to create storms internally, you're going to get storms internally. You are. You are. And there'll be no relief. There'll be no relief. You will just become a constant person who is struggling. So to come to that peace, to come to that place. Look, in my own personal life, I'll just share with this one. This is a very personal thing with me. I've had plenty of issues with plenty of problems and plenty of things over my life. I have dealt with alcoholism. I have dealt with death in my family. I have dealt with disassociations with very, 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 very close friends, trusted friends of mine, things that I have done that I'm looking back, if I had to look back and reflect on them, that I'm really very, very, very embarrassed about. In my early years, my early behaviors, believe me, I'm no saint, and I don't try to come across as any saint. I don't. I'm one of you guys, right? I do. As this whole gift unfolded and things began to change, the one thing I really, really was taught, not just by people kind of pointing it. I wasn't taught like in a lecture, and that's why I'm not lecturing you. We're talking as friends, and I'm pointing to something that you can't see, right? I'm not pointing to the clock. I'm not pointing to your shoes. I'm pointing to air, right? There, out there. I am pointing to the unseen, the unnoticed, right? Which means I'm pointing to this moment right now, right? And I was taught, shown, pointed to, left to be frustrated with over and over and over and over and over again, that all it requires is to come to that place internally where you sit calmly in this moment. And if there's all kinds of waves and chop going on, that's what's here. But just understand, it's you that's doing it. And I've been repeating and repeating this. You're causing it. You don't want it, but you are causing it. Because there is that piece of you that connects to it. We talked about this a couple of months ago, actually, and I want to just kind of bring it back in for a second. I said to an audience one time at my office, because I do these classes where I teach, I said, can you be afraid of the unknown? And everybody's hands went up. Yeah, I'm frightened of the unknown. Right? I'm frightened of the unknown. And I asked them again, I said, how can you be frightened of something that you don't know? I mean, how can that happen? Right? What you really are frightened of is losing connection to what you know. That's what it is. When my brother passed away, as an example, my younger brother, when he died, that which I knew, our relationship as I had it with him, was a known to me. And then suddenly that was gone. It wasn't the unknown, it was the absence of what I knew. And the only way my brother stays, quote, in my world, quote unquote, is if, by the average mind I'm talking about now, is if I remember him. Right? I remember him. And if I don't remember him, I won't have any sense of him. That's the average person speaking, right? You know what I'm talking about. Therefore, when people say, I have to remember my daughter, I want to memorialize her, I want to memorialize my son, I never want to forget, I never want to forget. Listen to me, you're never going to forget. You're never going to forget. You may eventually, over time, come to accept more fully what it is and what has happened, but you'll never forget your child. Never. It may not be on the tip of every conversation 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road. It doesn't mean you're forgetting, but a lot of people, you guys know this, they become guilty of it, they become bitter about it, all of that. They point at other people, how come you don't remember, how come you don't talk about it, why don't you honor his birthday, those kind of things. And they keep the relationship with their loved ones that have crossed through the eyes of guilt, sorrow, fear, and anxiety. And they miss the radiant beauty, the light, the beautiful expression of their soul. This incredible beauty is present right in front of your face, and you miss it because your mind is in the past. And where you are sitting, there will be no storms if you are sitting in the present moment. The psychological movement will only be in the present moment. I am not talking about, again, suppressing it, getting rid of it, making believe the past didn't exist. No, you open up your arms and you embrace it all. All the joy, all the happiness, all the sadness, all the sorrow, all the grief, all of it. And when you do that, when you receive life as it comes, it creates a great sense of peace and a great sense of freedom. Look, excuse me, I'm just going to get a little bit of water here. The movement of anxiety is the result of unresolved conflict. It is. When people are anxious, it's that they have something going on, they're anticipating something negative, right? It's a form of anxiety. I know next week I go to court, I'm going to get 3 tickets, and I have to pay $500, and I'm very anxious about it. I'm anxious. Tonight, for example, the Yankees are playing baseball tonight, or they probably just started a few minutes ago. People are anxious about the outcome. Are they going to win? Are they not going to win? Right? They're anxious. They're nervous. There's nothing wrong with that in itself. It's just the body's way of being ready. It's like getting ready for battle. Nothing wrong with it. It's a very, very, very good asset, actually. But when we have anxiousness driven by phantoms of the mind, when we have storm clouds forming over the activity of the mind, that is self-generated mojo, it's going to keep you twisting. So let's say, hopefully, for my friends that are Yankee fans, let's say they do win tonight, right? Let's say they do win and go on to the World Series to play the Dodgers. They'll be jumping up and down, laughing. A lot of other baseball fans won't be happy for them. I hate the Yankees, that kind of a thing. Right? You're going to get those guys too, of course. It's always the Yankees, that kind of a thing. I get it. But the point I'm making is that anxiety is driven by something that hasn't occurred. Let's say they do win. You can feel not only the exhilaration hit, the anxiety is gone because the outcome has presented itself. When you have known facts at the end, whether they be negative or whether they be positive, anxiety abates because there's been an answer to the problem. It may not be the answer you want, but you're getting one. You're getting one. And with that, your body starts to relax in a very crazy way, and you start to settle down. Why? Because there's no more ifs. This is what the answer is. Boom. You see? And that's what reduces the anxiety. So to kind of put a little bit of a top spin on all of this, this was a very, very fast hour. I got to tell you, my friends, it was great being with you guys. Any storm that shows up in your life, you can handle it. You can. You have been given the soul, the gift of grace. You've got the psychic energy. You've got love. You have intelligence. All of it to help guide you through anything. Through anything. You have. You have a community of family and friends that surround you. That is why the human animal has been given to each other to support each other. You have been given, for some of you, prayer, meditation, your faith. You have all of these tools available to you. All of them. But singularly and most importantly is this moment. Your life is lived only and will ever be lived in this one moment. And when you come to really see that, really embrace that, come to that experience, which is an effortless thing to do, everything changes. And as life shows up, so will you. So will you. And you will draw upon the past with wisdom, not always with knowledge, with wisdom, with maturity, with intelligence. And you will work your way through this. And you will work your way through this. I don't care what storm is on in front of you. I don't care what it is. What it is. You will handle it. Not with aggression, not with power, not with strength per se. You will handle it with the deepest level of strength, which is your union with the divine, which is found only in this moment. And you know what, my friends? Everyone that loves you, and I mean every soul that's crossed ever, only exists in this present moment. They don't exist in your past memory. Your past memory says they do, and they don't. They exist here. When I read people, I'm reading the souls that are present right there, right now, in that moment. And if I wasn't doing that, I could not help a single person. I have learned intimately, this is the secret to peace. And to be very fair with you guys, I very, very rarely have any anxieties. Very rare. I want to cover a few announcements before we finish up. I want to thank you once again. Just give me 1 second. I just got to read it through. Oh, this is going to be one that I think a lot of you will relate to. This will be Facebook Live. It'll be on Friday night, November the 3rd. Friday night, November 3rd, 7:30 like tonight. It'll be on love, what is and what is not love, and the breakup of love relationships, the healing, and why it happens. Huge. And it's not just the love of spouses. It is the love of parents to children, children to grandparents, love of a job, love of a pet, the death of an animal. All of that breakup, all of that will be discussed in intimate detail. Finally, this workshop, which I'm encouraging you to be a part of this little conversation, it will help heal your wounds. It'll help guide you to some peace and serenity. So until then, I want to wish you all, as we often say, namaste. May my light and your light join, right? Please, each one of you are a candle. Share your light, share your radiance. You will come to know the peace that St. Paul said, a peace beyond all understanding. And it's all available to you free of charge right here, right now. Not from me, from the grace given to you by this one moment. Thank you all very much for coming. Good night.